Here's how I trained for my total hip replacement. No, I'm not a doctor in training. I am not a medical professional at all, and I'm not giving you medical advice. But I am a runner. So just kind of bear with me as I go through this whole analogy for you. As a runner, I have run 3 full marathons, a number of half marathons, and oodles of 5Ks. For all of my larger races, the half marathons as well as the full marathons, I trained for those. Those are incredibly grueling experiences that my body was going to go through. And so I wanted to be sure my body was at its peak condition so that way I would be able to go through those experiences, come out the other end, not broken, not, incapacitated, and actually have a good experience on the other side. So when I was getting ready for my total hip replacement, which I had at the age of 56, about 18 months ago now, I actually took the same approach. When I talked to the staff at my doctor's office about, is there anything I should be doing to get ready for my total hip replacement, they said, oh no, don't worry about it. The only instructions that they gave me prior to the surgery was, I believe that they said 2 weeks prior, stop taking any supplements, any vitamins, don't take any anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen or anything like that. But as far as anything else, they're like, just show up the day of surgery. Now, for me, I was thinking my body is going to go through a really grueling experience. And I wanted my body to be in the best condition it could be prior to the surgery. So that way I would have the best opportunity for a good experience in the days, weeks, and months after the surgery. Now, perhaps I did that simply because I felt very out of control with the whole experience of having to have a total hip replacement. And so maybe me coming up with a training plan was more of a mental thing rather than a physical thing. But I did have a really good post-surgical experience. I was walking with a cane 4 days after my surgery. I ditched the cane probably about a week and a half later, mostly because it was annoying. I was walking on a treadmill 2 weeks after the surgery, and I'm back running today. Now, how I am running today and my doctor's recommendation for that, that's a totally different topic for a totally different video. In the time leading up to my surgery, I really tried to focus on my core as well as much as possible, my legs. Now, the doctor had told me that he was going to be doing what is called an anterior approach to the total hip replacement, meaning they were making an incision on the front side of my hip. There are other doctors that in different situations may do an external approach or a posterior approach. Well, they will basically slice open your butt cheek and approach your hip replacement that way. I believe there's also something called a lateral approach, which is kind of on the side. But my doctor had told me right away he was going to go in through the front of my hip in an incision that he promised me, and it was true, was only 3 inches long. They do not cut muscles. They go in with their tools to the muscles that are in the ligaments and whatever's in that quadricep area, in your hip flexor area, and they actually spread it apart. So while they aren't cutting your muscles, those muscles are having a lot of damage. So I wanted to be sure my muscles were in their peak condition prior to that, so that way, as I said before, they could hopefully recover better. So lots of core exercises. I wanted to be sure that I could handle the whole walker situation. I wanted to be sure that I could get out of bed easily by strengthening my core, my abs, my back as well, upper and lower back. Again, I did as much as I could to strengthen my hip flexors. I also was working as much as possible on building my endurance. That was hard for me because I could not run. It was too painful. And really in the weeks and days up to my surgery, walking even was painful. What I was able to do were leg lifts. Again, trying to strengthen my hip flexors, the areas kind of between my belly button and the middle of my quadricep. I wanted those to be as strong as possible prior to the surgery. The other thing that I really focused on in the couple of weeks prior to the surgery, as well as the couple of weeks after the surgery, was really thinking about my diet. What was I actually putting into my body? Now, again, at the doctor's office, the question when I asked about that, they're like, oh, eat whatever you want. Why would you need to eat something special before surgery or not? My weaknesses are on those comfort food carbs, macaroni and cheese, cakes, cookies. I am known to have an extra glass of wine on occasion, especially when I'm feeling a little bit rattled, such as I'm going to have major surgery in the next couple of weeks. But what I know from my body is when I eat those types of comfort foods that are full of carbohydrates, my body has a lot of inflammation. My eyes get puffy. I feel tired the next morning, but I've realized it's not necessarily that I'm tired because I didn't sleep enough or sleep well. I feel tired simply because my eyes are all puffy, same as they might be if I didn't get a good night's sleep. The other thing that I have noticed about my body is when I eat a lot of those carb-heavy comfort foods, my hands get puffy. My fingers feel stiff. My breasts get puffy and swollen when I have a lot of those heavy carb type meals. And because I've learned that about my body over the years, I thought, okay, my body is going to go through a massive traumatic event. Separate from even just the actual surgery itself, I'm going to have all kinds of who knows what drugs pumped into me. Don't know how long those are going to be in my system. Don't know how they're going to impact me. So I decided in the couple of weeks prior to the surgery to go on a not super rigid, but a intentional anti-inflammatory type diet. Meaning I didn't have any alcohol because I know that makes me puffy and swollen and kind of stiff and creaky for a couple of days after having alcohol. I really tried to reduce the number of processed carbohydrates that I had. I tried to reduce the amount of sugar that I had. Again, all of this comes from me knowing my body. Just like I know that if I have a couple of glasses of wine, or if I have pizza, or I have, I make homemade cookies, which I love to do. And the only problem with making homemade cookies is then I eat all the homemade cookies. I know that if I try to go for a run the next day, that run is not successful. I'm stiff, I'm creaky, I don't want to do it, my body hurts. Compared to when I treat my body well and have lots of water to be sure that I'm well hydrated, to be sure that I'm not all sugared up, don't have alcohol in my system, when I go for a run, my body responds much better. So that's how I kind of approached getting ready for my surgery. Now, I was telling a friend that that's what I was doing, and they're like, oh, that's a great idea. So you can have the comfort foods after your surgery when you're feeling kind of rattled from the surgery. And I really tried to avoid that as well. Now, obviously, immediately after my surgery, I was home the same day because I had my surgery at a surgical center. And I did not have a good experience coming out of anesthesia. I was essentially seasick and couldn't keep any type of food down or any water down, so I was a little bit worried about that. But the next day, that was kind of all out of my system. I really, really, really focused on drinking lots of water, being well hydrated. I still stayed away from those sugary, yummy, carb-heavy foods that we all love, or at least that I love. What I had done in the weeks leading up to my surgery is I had actually prepared a number of foods that I thought I would enjoy eating after the surgery and made sure that I had them in the freezer. But I also wanted to be sure that I had a lot of good healthy options for myself, sticking with that concept of wanting to have somewhat of an anti-inflammatory diet in the days and weeks after my surgery to try and reduce swelling as much as possible, to try and reduce puffiness that was kind of a side effect of the anesthesia as much as possible. So that's what I did. Obviously, I did not drink any alcohol as long as I was still taking narcotics. I was happy to take my pain pills after my surgery. So for me, that's how I approached getting ready for my total hip replacement as well as after my total hip replacement. If you have a different experience, let me know. Or if you are a medical professional or a dietitian and you have a viewpoint on this idea of training for planned surgery, would love to hear your perspective on that also. Or if you think I'm just, crazy and I just kind of needed to control my mental state because I was pretty wigged out about needing to have this major surgery, let me know that too. What I do know is that for me, I think it was the right decision to be training for this event. After the surgery, I'm so glad that I did because I was up on my feet, walking unassisted pretty quickly.